There is a specific hour on the third day of every solo trip that almost nobody talks about. It isn't dangerous, and it has nothing to do with running out of money. But it is the single moment that will decide if you become a lifelong traveler or if you book the next flight home. Most people prepare for the wrong problems. We have all internalized the standard script. Solo travel is brave, but it's risky, lonely, and expensive. However, looking at the travel landscape in January 2026, the data tells a completely different story. The risks you are worrying about have largely been solved by technology, while the real challenges are things you haven't even put on your packing list yet. Let's look at the gap between what you fear and what is actually true. First, let's address the fear of the unknown. The myth is that you are vulnerable the moment you step off the plane. The truth? In 2026, getting lost is arguably a choice. With Universal Satellite SOS now standard on most flagship smartphones and real-time AI translation removing language barriers instantly, the stranger in a strange land danger narrative is outdated. You are statistically safer in many global tourist hubs today than you are during your daily commute. Then there is the silence. The myth says you will be eating dinner alone, staring at your phone. The reality is actually a social paradox. Thanks to the explosion of interest-based travel apps that peaked last year, solo travelers are finding it harder to get alone time than to find friends. The barrier to entry for connection has vanished. You aren't walking into a void, you are walking into a global network that is actively looking for you. What about the single tax? We used to believe solo travel cost double because you couldn't split the bill. But notice how the hospitality industry shifted this spring. Hotels and experience providers finally realized that solo travelers are their most reliable demographic. The rise of microrooms and dynamic pricing, for one, has actually made solo travel cheaper per capita than group travel for the first time in history. But none of this matters if you don't survive that moment I mentioned at the start. Here is the truth about the third day. It's called the solo dip. The adrenaline of arrival wears off, the jet lag sets in, and for about 4 hours, your brain panics because it has no one to mirror. The myth is that solo travel is constant euphoria. The truth is that sitting with your own thoughts during that dip is the actual adventure. Once you push past that discomfort, that is when the real freedom begins. That is the moment you actually arrive. Don't let the myths of 2020 stop you from experiencing the reality of 2026. The world is more accessible, connected, and affordable for the solo adventurer than ever before. You just have to be willing to sit through the dip. If you are ready to pack your bag, check the resources on screen for the best solo-friendly destinations this season.